Hi friends, it's Aubrey. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you some meal prep, some pantry cooking, just using things up around the kitchen to make some meals and prep some meals for my family for this week. If that interests you, keep watching. Found this in my pantry and it is expiring soon, so we are going to make some muffins from it. On the back of the box, it has a power cake muffin, so we're going to try out that recipe. Like I said, we're just going to follow the instructions on the back of the box. I'm going to add all of the dry ingredients and wet ingredients to my bowl, and I'll also add in some bananas that I had in my freezer that needed to get used, and so they are very brown, but if you have some bananas that you aren't going to use quite yet to make banana bread, definitely put them in your freezer, just in the freezer bag, and then pull them out later, and they will work just the same in those recipes. And one thing to note with this recipe in particular is the batter is pretty thick. It turned out super tasty. The muffins are just a little bit more dense, so that may be something to note. If you like more of a light and fluffy muffin, this may not be the recipe for you. Make sure to grease your pan, and then you'll bake these muffins in the oven at 350 degrees for about 16 to 18 minutes. If you can't eat all of them right away, pop them in your freezer. They taste great after you thaw them out later. I'm going to show you my spaghetti sauce recipe that we love so much. I love it better than any of the canned or jarred stuff you can get at the store. I have not tried Rayo's, so it probably isn't as good as that, but this one is super easy to make, and you probably already have the ingredients on hand. What you're first going to do is heat some olive oil in your pot and then add in an onion. I'm doubling this recipe, so I am using one large onion. I'll be sure to have the recipe down in the description box for you, though, for your reference. Next, I'm going to add in some salt and pepper to taste. I do about a teaspoon or so of each of these. And then from there, once all the other ingredients are added, I'll go ahead and add a little bit more at the end just to make sure it tastes perfect. Next, we're going to add in our spices. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of dried parsley, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and about a teaspoon of basil. I'm just kind of eyeballing these, and like I said, this is a double recipe, so I'll be sure to have the single measurements down below for you. Next, we're going to add in the tomato products. We're going to add in 2 15-ounce cans of tomato sauce and 2 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. I also added in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Next, I added in 2 cups of water and about 2 tablespoons of sugar to cut the acidity from the canned tomatoes. We're going to let all of this simmer on a very low heat setting for about a half hour. Make sure to stir occasionally so that way everything gets well combined and doesn't burn. And then what you can do once it has cooled down is put it in some freezer safe Tupperware or glass jars if you leave enough room. I would recommend plastic. That's what I do. And we just fill these up, make sure they're cooled all the way through, put the lids on them and pop them in the freezer, and then pull them out when you want some spaghetti sauce for an easy and quick dinner. I have some Pillsbury pizza crust dough in my freezer. Yes, you can freeze the Pillsbury dough. It works pretty well. You just need to pull it out about 24 hours in advance and leave it in the fridge. That way it'll thaw and then it should cook just normally. So we're going to use that along with some of the pasta sauce we just made, and we're going to make some homemade pizza. We have lots of cheese in the freezer and we had some pepperoni in the fridge. So we're just going to add our sauce, some mozzarella, parmesan, our pepperoni, and then layer it with a little bit more cheese on top. Bake it in the oven according to the package instructions on the pizza crust. And then we will have some delicious homemade pizza. You can serve this with a nice salad or a veggie on the side. And this was a super tasty and really easy dinner to make, and it used some things that we had already on hand. I have a ton of beans in my pantry that I've been trying to slowly use up. and I had some soups that I wanted to make in the future, so I decided to make some Great Northern beans or navy beans in the Instant Pot. This is my favorite way to make beans, and it's so easy, and it's way more cost effective to do it this way and make the beans from dry beans than buy canned beans. Plus, I feel like they just taste better. And so we're going to add in the beans and a bunch of water. I got it right up to that fill line, and I did about 4 cups of beans. And we're going to let this cook on manual for 40 minutes, and then we'll let it naturally release. After about 10 minutes of that, we'll go ahead and get the rest of the steam out of there. And what I like to do is put all of these into freezer safe containers and then just pop them in my freezer and pull them out as needed for future soup recipes or other things that we plan on using these beans for. For this next one, I am making some pulled pork sandwiches with some roasted veggies. We had some lone potatoes and like half an onion and a little bag of carrots that needed to get used up, so I figured this was a great way to use them. We also had a little bit of barbecue sauce left in this one jar. My buns were also a clearance item, as well as the pulled pork that was in my freezer. Pulled those out before I needed to make dinner, and we got rid of so many loose packaging from my fridge and freezer, which was amazing. All I did to season the veggies was just some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and a little bit of paprika and Italian seasoning with some olive oil. I mixed that together and put it into the oven. I also heated up the pulled pork according to the package instructions, and then also made some corn that was in the freezer. And here is the final dish. Super tasty, and it came together in about 30 minutes. Tonight we're gonna have some leftovers of the pulled pork on top of some baked potatoes with some frozen veggies on the side. Let's get cooking. I made the baked potatoes in the air fryer by poking them after they were washed, putting a little bit of olive oil on them, popping them in there at 400 degrees for 20 minutes, and then after those 20 minutes, you rotate them and cook them for an additional 10 minutes at 400 degrees. I also heated up some corn in the microwave and was able to get rid of one more package from my freezer. I heated up the pork in the microwave. You could do this in the oven if you prefer to do it that way. And then we just had some cheese, pulled pork, corn on our baked potatoes, and it was super delicious and came together so quickly. We had some leftover salsa in the fridge from our New Year's Eve party, and we also had some chicken in the freezer, so I decided to make some Crockpot salsa chicken. I put my chicken breast in the Crockpot and salted and peppered it, and then added the remaining salsa on top. I put the lid on and cooked this on low for about 4 hours. And then after 4 hours, I found some roasted corn in my freezer, so I added that into the crock pot as well. I just eyeballed it. It was probably about a half cup. I let this cook for an additional hour on low, and then once the chicken was fully cooked, I pulled it out of the crock pot and shredded it up and added it back in. And then I made some tortillas and some rice, and that way my husband, daughter, and I could decide if we wanted it as a burrito or if we wanted to have a rice bowl. And you can definitely top this with other things. We just had it as is, and it was super tasty. You could add some cheese, some sour cream, some guacamole. You could add some fresh salsa on it. Either way, this is a really versatile meal, and if you have any leftovers, you can also freeze it and pull it out later. But this one we will be making again for sure. I had these Adele's teriyaki pineapple meatballs in my freezer, so I got these thawing and some rice cooking, and then I made some sauce. We're gonna make some teriyaki sauce to go along with our meatballs and rice. So you're first gonna need a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of soy sauce. Don't want to get another dish dirty, so we're just gonna use the 1/4 cup measuring. About a teaspoon of sesame oil. I'm just gonna eyeball it. About a teaspoon or so of fresh ginger. About a teaspoon and a half of honey. I'm just gonna eyeball it as well. A couple cloves of minced garlic. 3 tablespoons of mirin. And then 1/4 cup of water with a tablespoon of cornstarch. Over medium heat, we're just gonna combine all of this until it starts to thicken, and then we will add in our meatballs. I'm now gonna add in my clearance meatballs. We're just gonna let this marinate together for a little bit while the rice is finishing cooking, and then we will eat. Got my rice and the meatballs and sauce, and we'll just dish it up. Looks super tasty. That is all I have for you guys today. If you did enjoy, give this video a like. I try and do a pantry cooking video at least once a month because that's about how often I do it, to make sure we're using things up and not wasting anything. So if you like pantry cooking videos, hit that subscribe button, and I hope you have the best rest of your day. Bye.